Ready? Okay, so my name is Amy Schlesing. I'm Director of Communications for Science and Research here at the university, which means that I help highlight our researchers and discoveries that happen here for a national audience. I have a team, and we have a magazine, and we work hard to try to understand all the research across all the disciplines here, which could be a challenge, but my journalism background helps with that a lot. So for most of my career, I was a print journalist for the Democrat Gazette in Little Rock. I was, for 12 years, I was their military reporter and covered Iraq and Afghanistan. I left there in 2013 and went to work for a U.S. senator as the military policy aide. And then came here earlier this year, back in March. So glad to be back at the U of A. It's my alma mater. So studied journalism here. Some of you guys are. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of these lessons in journalism and how I use them even today. So you guys have been talking about fundamentals of journalism. Give me some ideas. What are some fundamentals of journalism that you've learned? Maybe style. Read that into you. What else? News value is big. Yeah. And that's a lot to do with your gut, right? You kind of learn that as you go. You get more practice and see what news is. What else?
How to write for
It's a big one. So I think of, not everybody thinks this way, but many of us do. I think of journalism as being two different skills that are blended into one. Reporting, which is gathering of information, making sure you have all the questions answered, making sure that you fully understand the issue, and that you can explain it clearly. So it's the gathering of information, organizing information, and getting the story. And then the other side is writing, which is a different skill. Right? And I've always been stronger at reporting stuff than the writing. Writing's hard, guys. No, it's hard. Making sure that you have your lead and you have your news value and that you can explain things clearly, right, rather than in a muddled manner. So writing is something that everybody works on their entire life and tries to get better at. So, but the more I did it, I enjoy writing as much as I do reporting now. So, and I use those skills in what I do today for writing stories for our magazine, talking to researchers, getting them to boil down information so that a broad audience can understand it, or just so I can understand it. You know, I talked to a physicist once, and I said, I know those words you just used are real words, but I didn't understand them. Help me understand your research. Let's bring it down a little more. And it's a real challenge, but it's also what I love about this job. It's also what I loved about being a print journalist. Learning something new, figuring out how to communicate something. A couple of lessons that I learned over the year. Some of these fundamentals that are a little bit different, a little more philosophical. Be present. Whether you're covering City Hall or covering a war, doesn't matter. If you want to really know what's happening, you got to get out of your desk and go talk to people. Pull the documents. Get to the bottom of what's happening. Verify. Verify what you learn. Because some people could lie. Documents don't. So you have to pull all this together to get to the bottom of the question you're asking, which goes to be curious. The news value is the what, right? What's happening? What really is happening? And how does it affect people? And then you go to the why. Why is it happening? So I've got a couple of examples, and you guys feel free to ask questions. Bring it, just bring it. Um, you know, it's important to listen to people, really listen, to be present. You listen, you observe, then you investigate. Right? So being present, even if you're just talking to somebody on the phone, really listening to what they're saying and listening to what they're not saying, so that you know what questions to ask next. And being present, going to the police department to pull the criminal record if you are looking into somebody, or if you're writing a story about a crime. Go there, pull it. Just don't pick up the phone and say, hey, what do you know about this? Be present. So one example of that, and this is left over from the last class, Bill Bowden. I worked in Little Rock for the DemGas, and one of the last series I did, I worked with Bill Bowden, who writes up here for the DemGas, was Ken Hayden. I don't know if you remember him. He ran for Congress a couple of years ago against Congressman Womack up here. And I got a call one day. I was covering the military, and I was at my desk in Little Rock. I got a call from a retired Army sergeant major. And he said, Ken Hayden is lying about his military experience. And, you get those calls occasionally, people accusing things. Okay, why do you think this? Well, you just need to look at his military record. That's all he would give me. He wouldn't tell me who he was. I called Bill, who was covering the campaign. I said, Bill, what do you think about this? Yeah, I heard that rumor too. I said, well, I'll ask him for his military record. And so everybody who serves in the military, when they leave the military, they get what's called a DD-214. And it's just a record of their military service, what schools they went to, sometimes what units they were in, what ranks they achieved. And it's used for benefits. To determine whether they're eligible for benefits from the VA. It's proof of their military service. And they don't have to give that to people, but we asked Ken Hayden for it. And he gave it to us. And sure enough, it said that he graduated from Special Forces training in the schools. But on the other side, it didn't show that. It showed that he served, after graduating, he served with the non-Special Forces unit, which is just and I thought, well, that's weird, but it did show that he graduated from that school. And so Bill and I talked about it. And I called Ken Hayden and asked him about it. And he said, here's my, says I graduated. I said, yeah. Well, why didn't you serve in a unit? And I don't remember what he said, but he had an explanation. I called Bill and I said, I think it's solid. There's nothing, I don't think there's a story here. And a couple of weeks went by, I get another call. And it was from the same guy who was in a military organization, retired Special Forces troops. And apparently they had been talking about it. He said, I'm telling you, he's lying. He didn't graduate. So I called Fort Bragg, where, let me put that on. I called Fort Bragg, which is home to the Army Special Forces School. That's North Carolina. And they said, we don't normally give up our records on training. I said, well, here's the deal. And I explained what we had. And I said, I've got the DD-214. There's kind of a discrepancy there. I don't know what's up. I said, well, send us a DD-214. So I did. I didn't hear anything back. A couple of weeks went by. I called him again. He said, we got a call about this guy too. We're not sure what's happening. We can't find him in the rolls, but his DD-214 says he graduated. And called Ken Hayden back. There was a lot of back and forth. He got angry. His campaign manager threatened us. And come to find out, after Fort Bragg launched their own investigation, and his DD-214 was wrong. He had not graduated. And he kept insisting that he had, because he had that piece of paper. But he had not. He had failed out twice. And so our queries ended with the U.S. military correcting his military record because it was incorrect. And then they launched an audit of all of the graduates of special forces to make sure that hadn't happened again. Because it had happened in one shop. He had gotten and in the end, he ended up dropping out of that race. But, that's about being present, right? If you keep asking the question, sometimes there is something there, sometimes there isn't. But being present and being curious is pretty important when your gut says this just doesn't add up. So that's also about doing your homework. You've got to see the records, and you've got to understand what they say. And if you can't understand the record, because a lot of records are just in their own kind of language. The military has their own language, their own codes and whatnot. And so, but it's important not to draw conclusions before you have the information you need. You know, you're digging for information to get to the conclusion, right? To figure out what's going on. You keep asking questions until you have all the pieces in place so you have the picture. So, another example of that was in Iraq. So I was in Iraq. My first tour in Iraq was in 2004, 2005. I was there for a full year with the infantry in Baghdad as an embedded reporter. And about halfway through that year-long tour, I started noticing that we had more people coming through checkpoints. The military had set up checkpoints in various neighborhoods, or they'd set up a checkpoint if there was a raid going on so people couldn't come into the neighborhood. And people started running through the checkpoints, like they wouldn't stop when U.S. military is trying to get them to stop. And this hadn't been a big problem before this started happening. And what happens when you blow through a checkpoint is they open fire, because the threat of a car bomb is real. And so there were civilian deaths, more so, than we'd seen before. And I was out on one of these patrols, and there was a family, and they stopped. It was 3 in the morning. You couldn't see them in the car. They stopped at this checkpoint where they were supposed to. And then all of a sudden, that car just started driving through the checkpoint. Gunner opened fire. Killed everybody but one person in the car. And it was a family of 4, and the little boy lived. And I went, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did they drive through the checkpoint? Why did they open fire? So I started with one of our Iraqi interpreters. I said, what is happening? And he said, well, I think people are confused and scared. Well, that's true. That would be scary for anybody coming up on a checkpoint with a big gun. And this was happening only at night. It wasn't happening during the day. We were having people run through checkpoints during the day. And I said, but what else? What else is happening? Well, not many Iraqis can read. So they had just made these great big signs that they posted in Arabic. Stop. And then those signs took place at the same time that the military started flashing their flashlights when the cars stopped. Well, I decided I was going to see how big this issue was. I was seeing it with the troops that I was embedded with, but that was a pretty small picture, right? So I called 1st Cavalry Division Commander, who owned, he was in charge of all of Baghdad. And that's Major General Peter Corelli. And I called to talk to him and see if this was a broad, if they were seeing this across the division, or if this was just some weirdness happening with the unit I was with. Because, when civilians are dying, you've got to figure out why. And I went through his public affairs officer, who was a colonel, who I'd worked with before, and he didn't call me back. So I went into the JAG office. The JAG officer was the military lawyers, and they would let me use their phone, to call other forward bases, General Corelli was at a different base. So I use their phone, and I call the public affairs commander, and said, well, Amy, we've been busy. We've got New York Times, we've got Time Magazine, we've got, I've got all kinds of reporters on the ground. I don't have time for your questions. I said, are you saying that you have favoritism? That you didn't forward my question on why Iraqis are dying at checkpoints because Time Magazine's on the ground? That's not cool. And he got mad. Favoritism is not something, public affairs officers really like to hear. And I knew I was mad too. And he said, he threatened to kick me out of Iraq. He said, I will kick you out of Iraq. I said, I'd like to see you try, Colonel. Then I hung up the phone, which was not a good move. Don't do that. But I was mad, I couldn't get through to the general. And this was a serious problem. And I look over and the two JAG officers, the two lawyers, they're peeking up from the ground behind a desk, and they're like, oh, that was good. I go, no, that wasn't good. But General Corelli talked to me the next day about this. And he had not seen the overall numbers of checkpoint shootings. It takes a while for information to get to the highest level. Other people handle that. And my query made him look at that. And I said, what's going on? He said, it's happening across everywhere. Because I don't know why. So he launched an investigation. And what he found out was the new signs were not translated. They were not clear for those who actually could read, because we're talking about a high level of illiteracy. Thank you. And but also, there was no standard across Baghdad for flashing lights. Some units were flashing flashlights for drivers to pull through the checkpoint. Others were flashing flashlights for drivers to stop. What do you do when it's the dark? And many Iraqis would move at nighttime because it was safer and the volatile times, and not as crowded, easier to move around. So you'd see things at night. It wasn't uncommon. So I wrote that story, and that problem became known because of curiosity, because that's why is this happening? What's happening? Well, we're getting a lot of checkpoint shootings of civilians. Why? Found out why. And didn't get kicked out of Iraq. Yeah.
What made you first make the decision?
That's a good question. So I got the military beat in 2000, and it was the end of 2000. No, it was mid 2012. So we were already in Afghanistan. And rumblings of going to Iraq had started. And Sandy Davis, who had the beat before me, she called me one day from her office because she worked in a bureau. And she said, Amy, I'm done. She had been to Bosnia, Kosovo, Somalia. She'd had the beat for 14 years. She goes, I'm taking my sailboat to the Caribbean. I'm done. I'm out. I don't have another war in me. She goes, I think you should fight for the beat. And I go, yeah, I mean, it would be great. And because one of your prime things that you would cover would be Little Rock Air Force Base, which is the largest C-130 cargo plane base in the world. That's how the Democrat Gazette gets access to war. You could always fly over the C-130, which is why the Democrat Gazette has always had people on the ground anymore. It was a really, really good opportunity to be able to have a beat that had national impact. So I went and asked for it, and managing editor said, well, we've got other people who want it. Maybe. I fought for it and got it. And they opened up the window for embeds in Iraq about a month before the invasion. And I said, we've got to go. We got to sign up and go. And managing editor said, hold on. We don't know if any Arkansas troops are going yet. We don't even know if we're going to war. We just got to simmer down. Every day I did in the office. Can't cover a war from a desk. Gotta send it. Gotta send it. Gotta send it. That window closed. They had all the embeds they could handle for the march. And so I watched it from the desk. And however, Arkansas units started getting called up shortly afterward. And by the end of 2013, 2003, I'm sorry. It was 2002, 2003. Sorry, guys. I'm in the wrong decade. So it was 2002 when I got the beat. 2003, we had Arkansas troops called up. 39th Infantry Brigade, which was the largest National Guard unit in the state, and one of the highest trained in the National Guard as well. They got called up, and I went to managing editor. I said, I got to go. And he goes, I keep trying to think of an excuse why we can't send you. And I said, got to go. So off I went. And then I did 7 tours in all after that first year to Iraq and because you can't cover a war from this. Because I couldn't. Because the embed program was started with the Iraq War. It was different. There was, World War II, we had embedded reporters on the pot, but they were sensitive. The military had to read. In Vietnam, reporters didn't go on patrols. They would fly out and do that. And then after Vietnam, the military was pretty anti-press on that, and so they never opened up any more. And then when Iraq started, for whatever reason, they decided we need embedded reporters, so we'll allow it. They allowed it on the first march, and they weren't sure if they were going to allow it beyond that. And there was no requirement for, no one has to see anything that we write. We wouldn't go, we had to turn over a story or show pictures before we sent on the paper. Because that's not true. If you're going to be censored, and so we went. And so the concern was, it wasn't just writing about what was happening, on the ground. It was going out on combat patrols and doing something that I had my bell rung a few times. I was blown up 4 times in Iraq. I battled pretty bad staph infection on one leg for about 4 months. They threatened to send me home because it had lost one eye. But I stayed. And but I never caught a shot. I was very and none of the photographers I was with were really yeah. I was combined Iraq and Afghanistan a little over 3 years.
Did you ever have anyone
Yes, this is a story that I haven't been able to tell to any class yet.
Oh, good.
So, threatened to kick me out of Iraq was pretty good. Of course, that's different than censoring. So this was 2008, and I was back over in Iraq with some combat engineers. They had just brought in heavy armored trucks because roadside bombs were now bigger, and troops it was really volatile over there. This is right after the surge. So 2008, I went over with combat engineers, whose job was to drive these huge, they were called mine resistant armored vehicles. They had a V on the bottom, so when the blast came, it would just it would disperse the blast, and they were heavily armored, so shrapnel couldn't get through as easily, but they would still get blown up pretty good. And they would go and look for roadside bombs on the side of the road. Infantry would follow them in light vehicles, and they would clear the road for the infantry. And it was a whole new concept. We hadn't really had that before, so it was a new concept in defense and new equipment. So I went to write about that. And I'm with these guys one night. It was painfully boring most days, which is good. That means nobody got blown up. So boring. And you're in a tin can, you're locked down, there's, and everybody's got headphones, there's usually some music playing, jokes being said, and everything. It's a dark at night, somewhere around 2 in the morning. And over battalion net, the battalion radio, we hear that 2 Apache helicopters had just shot up a car, 2 guys that had been placing a bomb just up the road. And they were asking for ground troops for support because one of them had run away. We were right there, so off they go. And get to the car, see the car shot up, see one man who's dead, he's been shot from a helicopter from above, and head off road to try to find bomb, first of all, because the bomb wasn't on the side of the road, the one who ran away was carrying it, we thought, and to find it. We didn't have to go far. There's all the headlights are on. There's the bomb in the brush, not far off. And everybody dismounts, heads out on foot. They disarm the bomb and go find the guy who was not far away because he had been shot as well. So he made it as far as he could. Medics started administering aid to this guy. Gave him morphine, gave him an IV, called Aerovac to come get him, and waited for Aerovac to get there to take this who appeared to have been bomb to the hospital. And they haul him away, helicopter takes him away. Some 1st Cavalry Division, 1st Cavalry was back in Iraq at that time. After 2004 and 2008, they came and they're like, "What do you mean you Aerovac around?" They're like, "Well, that's what we do, you just don't kill him, And they were pretty grisly. We got back to, there was a lot that the story that I wrote documented that moment where they were administering aid to someone they considered an enemy who tried to kill them. That's a pretty powerful humanitarian story, right? And when other troops came in and said, "Why didn't you just kill him?" Pretty compelling story. We get back, middle of the night. Photographer has all these great photos. We have a satellite modem. We never relied on the military to send our photos or to talk to the newspaper. We use satellite equipment. So we were completely self-contained. We did not have to rely on the military for any sort of communication. Staten had already sent his photos. I was finishing up my story. And the battalion commander calls. We were at a forward base. The battalion was at a different calls at the operations center. And one of the soldiers comes in and says, "Colonel Anslow wants to talk to you." I will write down that name in case you don't want it. COL is the AP abbreviation for colonel. ANSLOW. She called, she said, you can't send that story. And I said, quote, "Like hell I can't." And she said, "No, I'm embargoing it." I said, "You can't do that." And she said, "You can't send any pictures either." And I looked at Staten, I said, "She said you can't send any pictures." And he grabs the phone, he goes, "Already did." And she was once again said, we can't, you can't do it. I forbid it. And good talking to you. Gotta go. And because she didn't have the right to do that. That wasn't allowed. We sent the story. It appeared in the morning's paper because of time change. You could send a story at 4 in the morning, and it would make it for that morning's paper. And it was a story about U.S. troops administering humanitarian aid to someone they considered an enemy, someone who tried to kill them. And the discussion on the way back to base on why they did that. Because it's the right thing to do, because they might get intelligence out of him on where they got the bomb, because you can't just shoot somebody in the head, which they could have, but they didn't. And Colonel Anslow took a patrol up to our forward base the next day and thanked us for the story. And I said, you can't control what you write. We don't work for you. And she had a really hard time with it. But that was the only time that somebody tried to stop a story. But they couldn't because we were independent. We had our own communication strategy. There was a time in Afghanistan where they tried to keep me off of a patrol, and I argued to go on it. They weren't comfortable with a female reporter being on. And so, you can, when you're a reporter in war, you have to understand you bring nothing to the fight. You can help in no way. You're just somebody for them to worry about. You're somebody they have to fight, keep safe, basically, because you're there, but you don't have a gun. You have a pen. So you have to be sensitive to that and try to be as do your job without being in the way as much as possible. So ran into that a little bit. I won that argument too, but that was the other time.
When you were like going out with the troops and stuff, when they were going to find that guy, what were you like sitting still in the car?
Oh no, they pile out, and they piled up back. And yeah. If you stay in the truck, you might as well stay at your desk. But it was scary. That's a good question. I wasn't required to do any training, but for that first deployment, the military offered a war exercise that we could go to. Actually the unit we were covering was going through. It was their last training exercise, the end of their training before they went overseas. Whichever unit does that. And so we went and moved in with them at Camp now I forget where it was, Louisiana. Fort Polk, Louisiana. And we moved in with them and went through that training exercise, which was so beneficial. I think that anybody who is going to maneuver with troops needs to learn how to maneuver with troops because it saves lives. It saves your life. It saves your lives. Because if you get in the way, you're part of the problem rather than documenting what's happening. And so that's where we learned what all the different gunfire sounds like. It's where we learned when to get out of the truck, when to stay in the truck. We learned how to stack up on doors before they kick one in and go into a raid, how to stack up and follow them in. We learned all of that. We also learned how to live with the military. This was the infantry, no girls in the infantry. So we get to Fort Polk and in the middle of the woods. They said, well, we've got you with Delta Company. It's the far tent over there. So off I go with my duffel bag. And I walk in and it's a 100-man tent. And the company commander said, welcome to Delta Company. We've got a cot right up here front between me and the first sergeant for you. And he looked at Staten, my photographer. He goes, Staten, you can find a cot out there with the guys somewhere, And step outside. He stepped outside. He said he was rocking up on his toes in his boots. And the first sergeant is the highest non-commissioned officer. He's the highest sergeant. He's in charge of the enlisted troops. And he has his hands behind him, and he's just rocking up. He goes, "Oh, we've never had a girl in Delta Company." He goes, "So I'm going to brief the boys, don't cuss, don't be rude, tell those jokes that we like to tell. Somehow we're going to make it through this time." And I said, "Hold on. I can't do my job if people act differently. I don't want them to change one bit." And he was a pretty big guy. He looks down at me and he goes, "You don't understand." And I said, "I promise you, I will not be offended. And if I am offended, no one will know." And he goes, "I tried to warn you." And we walk back in. He looks at the company commander. He goes, "She's going to last a day." And when it was time to fly to Iraq, Delta Company said, "Oh no, she's with us." So that was a pretty big compliment because I proved my grit. I had to change clothes in a porta-john for those 3 weeks. I didn't have a shower. The guys were scared to change the drawers at one point. That's a word that I had not really heard before, but one of the sergeants came up and goes, "Amy, we've got a problem." And I said, "What's the problem?" He goes, "Have you noticed it's kind of smelly in here?" I said, "I noticed it the first time I came in this tent. It's smelly." And he goes, "Well, some of the guys are scared to change their drawers." And I go, "They're what?" He goes, "Their underwear." I go, Your platoon's all the way in the back." He goes, "Doesn't matter. They're scared you're going to see something." I said, "I'm changing in a porta-john." And he goes, "Doesn't matter. We have to come up with a code word. That, if somebody's going to change, if they're going to drop their drawers and change their drawers, you will look at the side of the tent." "Yeah." He goes, "And we voted. We've got one." "Of course you do." And he said, "It's free vote." "Are you kidding me?" And sure enough, he goes, "Amy, it's for the good of the people." He goes, "Some of these guys have not changed their drawers in way too long." He goes, "Because they're scared of the girl." And I was like, "All right." And so sure enough, an hour or so later, Free Willy, and I stare at the side of the and I'm still standing there like 5 minutes later. And I was like, "All right, I need an all clear, people, because I will stare at the side of this tent all day." So, it's important to learn how to live. If you're going to be an embed, learn how to live with the military, so that you're not affecting the story you're writing. And that goes to tactics, maneuvers, and also just how to be a part of that community, how to survive in that community, and which is quite the adventure. Yeah.
One of our rules said that you can't have cohesive with the do you still have any special relationships with the guys
Kind of. There are a couple of days that resonate over the years. Anybody who's been at war has these kind of anniversaries, whether, were we blown up or pinned down in some scary moment or somebody died. And there are a couple of troops that I call and check on every year on those days because I know they're struggling. So I check on some. One of the generals just called me the other day at my office and said, "Amy, what are you doing these days? How are you? I was just thinking about you." So I don't see the troops, but still kind of reach out occasionally, especially for those that are struggling with the aftermath of the war. So, yeah.
Were you arguing around?
No, Geneva Convention doesn't allow that. So, no weapon, just a pen. Yeah. No, I wear jeans, t-shirts. I have my body armor, which I still have today. Kind of and helmet. But otherwise, I wore civilian clothes. There was one night where we were lined up for a raid. It was a battalion-wide raid. So it was about 700 troops that were heading. Not all of them were heading out. It was probably 400. But everybody was just lined up, standing out there, filling up this huge area. And I'm there, and I'm wearing this chilly, so I had a long sleeve shirt on. The only one that was clean was kind of pink and then lighter pink striped long sleeve shirt. And so I got my body armor, I got my helmet, I got the ponytail, and I'm just standing there. And all of a sudden I see the sea part. You know, it's just guys are moving out of the way. And the battalion command sergeant major, who no one messes with, you know, he's coming and he's mad. I mean, he's got a little drool going, and he's like, and I was like, who's in trouble? Who's in trouble? And I realized everyone is just backing away from me. And he's staring at me, and I was like, I wonder what that's all about. And he comes up to me, and he gets about here. And he goes, oh, Amy, I forgot you were with us. He goes, I was just trying to figure out why one of my soldiers was wearing pink. He was really mad. I mean, he had a little drool going. And so, yeah. I just wore civilian clothes. Somebody had their hand up first. Some of you.
You like not little you, but kind of like
Yeah. You know, it always trust is something that we all have to build. So when you come in to cover a unit and they don't know you yet, you kind of have to prove your grit, and you have to build that trust. That, you know, I'm here to write about what you're doing, and I'm going to do it as fairly as possible. There were, you know, some troops that never liked me and never trusted me, and that's fine. And there were some that were rude occasionally, but you know, you've got to have a thick skin, you know, as a reporter, because you know, if it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're digging into a story, you're probably going to get pushback, and there are times when you're going to doubt yourself, and you just have to continue to focus on answering that question and getting that story as accurate as possible, and tune out the noise. That happened. It didn't happen a whole lot, but it did.
that was me. It was a very similar question. I was just gonna ask how you established yourself like as an ally to the troop, you know, instead of, I mean, basically everything's
Yeah.
you know, not wanting them, but someone that they could, you know, look at how respect and not only respect and just hear it and hear the story for the fame, you know,
Yeah.
like how you establish yourself as
Sure. The key is, you know, writing your story as accurately, good, bad, or ugly. So, the trust comes with verification. Right? So, it takes a little while for them to see what you're writing, see how you did your job, see if you're telling the story of that patrol the way that they saw that patrol, or if they think it's fair, if you're quoting them accurately. And so the proof's kind of depending on that. But it wasn't always positive stories. I wrote a story. There were several. I wrote a story in 2005 over there in Iraq about how booze and drugs. There was a major problem with troops. Troops weren't allowed to have alcohol or drugs, and they were getting it. And they were making a lot of stupid mistakes. There were two guys who got drunk, hopped in a Humvee, drove out the back gate of one camp. Back gate that only allowed armored vehicles and tanks because it was so volatile in the middle of the night. These two guys, without armor, without guns, hopped in a Humvee, drove out the back gate, ran through the gate, and off they go. And the unit had to spin up a patrol to go after them, because they weren't sure if the Humvee had been stolen by insurgents somehow or what was going on. And so they had to roll out after them. And, you know, troops in danger. There was that. There was another one that got caught sneaking out of a forward base, a little bitty forward base in Anamia, which was a really dangerous area, and walking to a liquor store in Iraq, in Baghdad. lot of liquor stores in Baghdad, but there were a few. And then they discovered that defense contractors who were allowed to have alcohol, some of them were selling it to troops. There was also a huge steroid problem. And so after the first two troops that faced court-martial, military trial for this, I started looking into what's going on. The battalion commander decided he was going to do a sweep of the battalion, brought in drug dogs and searched every room. And I did a story. I spent a couple of weeks working on it, getting some statistics on how many people were facing court-martial and where the guys were getting the booze and how much they found in the sweep. I wrote this story, which was not at all flattering for anyone. And the next day, Undersecretary of Defense sent me out everybody who was quoted in that story and said, I'm giving you the opportunity to say that she got it wrong and misquoted and this isn't happening. And everyone who was quoted replied back, no, she got it right. Which was the biggest compliment I think I could ever have as a reporter, because it made that battalion, that story made that battalion look bad, because it was a bad situation. But I wrote that bad news in a fair way. I laid it out the way it was while I was embedded with the same thing, right? If you're not willing to write the hard story, then you shouldn't be there. If you're worried you're going to upset the people that you're covering, then you shouldn't. You need to sit down. So, just like you're part of a community here, if you are covering City Hall here, as an embed, you're part of that community, but you're not one of them, and you're there to cover their issues as fairly and as balanced, good, bad, ugly as possible. And it's just the way you have to go into it. You're a turtle in their fish bowl. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's important to, I was never a gotcha journalist. I always thought that it was important to give context of what you're working on in order to get the best information you can. And I may have an excerpt of that I can look for, but yeah, they knew that I was working on it, and nobody asked me not to. Not that would make any difference. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really, I've said this before, there's a gift that comes out of kind of extreme experiences, and it's a new perspective. And it's a perspective that on kind of what's really important. You don't get all wrapped up, or I found myself, I can only speak for myself. After my time at war, I found that I wouldn't get wrapped up in small worries. There are things just not worth getting worked up about or not worrying about. And also, it's a reminder how fragile life is. But the big one is I learned that as people, and sometimes as frustrated we can get with one another because I feel like somebody else is self-centered or whatnot, in a cold world. What I learned is how deeply even strangers in extreme environments can take care of one another and say, you're right, you're okay. And humanity's alive and well. I don't mind a bit. Here. It's really easy. It's just Amy S. at UARK